Is it a rule that you'll only work with Tom Hiddleston if there's time travel involved?
It's a coincidence. It's like a...
Well, it is a rule, and our lawyers worked it out long ago, but it's one that I'm glad that you've picked up on.
The timekeepers have built quite the circus, and I see the clowns are playing their parts to perfection.
I first have to ask about Loki witnessing his own death, because that is such a monumental thing. And I'm curious how you even process a moment like that as an actor.
Well, that moment was when I first became aware of that was where the scripts were going. I thought, what an extraordinary moment to inhabit. And then of course you think, what would it be like for me, for anyone to sit and watch that? And how would it then change your sense of yourself, your journey through your own life, what you thought you had intended to do, what your motivations were, what was important to you, and then to see, it ends there. And it would be, it would be it would be cause for concern, I think.
What's so funny?
Glorious purpose. It throws into question the whole root of his sense of meaning in his life, where he has derived meaning and what his purpose was. I think it's a really interesting question just to think about, is we all have to, as we move through our lives, we have to think about what we're doing and why we're doing it and what we're working towards. If we're working to, basically we want our lives to mean something. And I think he's decided his glorious purpose is a reason for kind of doing what he does. And then I think that the whole thing is called into question, and he has a kind of nervous breakdown, or at least a breakthrough right, where he is confronted face to face with himself, his choices, and the things he's done. And I don't know, cause for concern, I think.
I think we tried to create a very intimate atmosphere on set when we were filming that. Like when we were filming on the memories, I actually had them all on my laptop and I was kind of DJing them from my computer. Nice. But I just loved that scene. I think the way Tom plays it, and as he goes towards it, almost felt like how we all imagine or felt when we sort of like, no, what the hell is going on? And like, I think he really captures that just complete horror. And like you said, like, that's what it was for. Like, that's what I got. And I love the kind of, there's this moment where you see him react and we have almost like the focus slips, but I kind of love it because I almost feel like it's kind of his feeling on reality, like slipping around him. And and then the end of file comes up, which is so cruel. And so again, in the mundane world of the TVA, and I think he starts to laugh, because what can you do? You're gonna cry or you're gonna laugh. So I think that, that moment for me is very chilling, and it's one of my favorite moments working with Tom. Definitely, I just think he does such a beautiful performance. So
what a humbling thing to see how your life was meant to play out. He says in the first Avengers,
an ant has no quarrel with a boot.
I think Loki, certainly this version of Loki, thinks he's the boot, and in that moment he very much finds out, no, you're the ant.
I beg your pardon?
And so it's humbling. It forces self-reflection and introspection in a way that I don't think Loki's ever done before, which is really interesting. We were just very excited about that moment because it's a cool thing to witness. This is a guy who's escaped death a lot, and to just see the finality of that, the violence of it, it's horrible. It's a hard thing for me to watch because I love the character. But Tom's just so tremendous in that moment, and it's one of my favorite moments in the whole series.
Yes, very sad. Anyway, it got me thinking. Go ahead.
Just to speak about kind of the Mobius relationship with Loki, I mean, one of the interesting things about this dynamic is just that Mobius knows everything about him. He knows him backwards and forwards. And I'm curious if that was something that was kind of part of your preparation process.
Mobius is watching. It was, I was saying that the whole sort of TVA and the way the sets had, and even our sort of wardrobe had this sort of bureaucratic kind of, strangely futuristic, but then also sort of retro Orwellian look to it. And that was, that's what, Mobius brings to the table when he sits across from the God of Mischief. And he needs something because, you're talking to a god. So you better have something. And what he has is the weight of the TVA.
For all time.
Well, actually, I wanted to ask about that relationship because it's strange that you guys have a history, but time isn't really a thing. So it's kind of hard to piece together. But did you have a reference point for that relationship? Did you either in movies or just from personal experience?
I mean, personally, I always looked at it as a sort of version of the M Bond dynamic, as in with me being M and Mobius being Bond, this sort of rascally agent that just is a bit maverick, and my character sort of appreciates him for the fact that he takes off on these maverick challenges, but also kind of has to have him toe the line as well. So I sort of looked at it a little bit like that, but then I think there's a slightly different chemistry going on. I think they have a long-standing friendship, and there's sort of layers to their history.
I feel like I'm always looking up to you. I like it. It's appropriate.
To look at this character, to look at Hunter B-15 from a macro perspective, this is a character who's not a human, but a being who knows the inner workings of the universe, knows the rules, and kind of lives to enforce them. Where do you even start with that character, and what mind space do you get into when you're playing a scene?
Well, it's just, she's someone who just wants to, she knows the rules and she sticks by them. So once I know the rules, that's it. That's her modus operandi. That's her goal, and that's what she sticks to. And so it really is about learning about the TVA and what it's there for, why it's there, and yeah, that's it. That's all that matters to her, really. That's the only thing that matters to her.
How far did you go as just in terms of defining the rules of the TVA? Because there are obviously so many questions that are sprung out of this. I'm curious just how far you went as far as figuring out the answers.
I mean, we went so far. Eric Martin, one of our writers, wrote an encyclopedia basically of it. We had to. That was the first and one of the first and most important tasks of the writer's room. After we sort of landed on the real emotional core of the show, we had to define the institutional rules of the TVA. What is a time travel law, and how do you break it? And so that required a lot of drawing of lines on the whiteboards with other squiggly lines coming off of it. A lot of writers yelling at each other over how time travel worked and everything. And at the end of that, we'd all created a foundational shared knowledge that then our job became, okay, how can we, download this to the audience and then have them never really think about it again? Because I don't want people thinking about rules while they watch the show. It's gotta just feel natural. So that was, I would say that was probably the biggest challenge and from the writers, one of our most important jobs. There was
essentially an encyclopedia that was built to kind of explain the rules of the TVA. Was that something you had access to?
It felt like I listened to the audio version of that encyclopedia, beginning with sort of a podcast by Tom, a Loki podcast, which I attended actually in person.
Nice.
Yeah, so many people, dive into the whole MCU, and I had, we could probably auction that off. It'd probably be a great thing for charity to have Tom Hiddleston walk you through the MCU, because that's what he did to me, and it was a beautiful walk.
I am smart. I know. Okay. Okay.
But I also do want to ask about working with Sophia Di Martino, because obviously massive reveal. I'm curious just about working with her, and also, is there a sense of like getting your own performance reflected back to you?
I think certainly there's, in that second episode, there was a moment of taking these characteristics, which I had found interesting about Loki, that his capacity to sort of provoke and disrupt and manipulate with charm, often with charisma, with wit. He's sort of always playing chess with people. You're never quite sure if it's sincere, if you can trust him. And seeing those characteristics inhabited by other people was really interesting. It was a really interesting mirror for me. And then also a very freeing feeling of like delighting in how the qualities of Loki might exist in outside of me completely. And I really enjoyed it. It was just, really fun. And I don't want to spoil things, but you'll see where it goes, because we contain multitudes, as some great psychologist once said.
I like it. Slap it on a t-shirt.
Sophia's great. Her energy is amazing. She does a great job in episode 2, and they're seen together and matching his energy there. It's really fun, albeit brief. I always knew, in a show about branching timelines and variants and everything, we wanted to hold up a literal mirror to Loki, and so this is one of the ways we're gonna do it.
Did you actually get to keep anything from set? Just because, I mean, the production design in this is absolutely gorgeous.
I have my tie.
Nice.
Tie that I wear, but had I been able to keep something from the set, I talked about how even sets sometimes that I wasn't involved, that I didn't have wasn't acting in, I'd go up to take a look at, just because they did such a good job with the production design. It really, I think, is cool looking.
That comes part and parcel of my next question, which is about the creation of the TVA, because this is obviously such a massive idea that you're introducing to the MCU, but you also have matched it with this really just fascinating aesthetic that is both like futuristic and 70s. So what was the evolution of that look, and just kind of where did it start? What were the other ideas tossed around, and what was the conversation that led to the final decisions?
Yeah, so when I pitched, basically, I mean, where I grew up in Southeast London, there's a lot of brutalist kind of architecture. Clockwork Orange was filmed very near me, so was Children of Men. And I love the idea of this organization, having this kind of brutalist kind of architecture, but mixed with this kind of Midwest architecture, because, these guys are heroic and very classy and, they save the universe. So I just was like, that felt like an interesting meld to me. And I think for me, like, honestly, it was interesting trying to create a place that existed outside of space and time, because there's no sun, they're not on a planet, they're like in this unknowable place. And I think somewhere I definitely drew from was the comics, because they had those amazing images of office desks stretching into infinity, and that's definitely something we've carried across with all the TVA's look and aesthetic. And then also just working out with the style and the lighting, like me and my DP were really inspired by, film noir and detective stories, but actually somewhere where there is no sunlight lent itself very nicely to, hard shadows and that kind of moody look. So I think for me, like, I was drawing from all kinds of places. I like the idea of the TVA having this kind of retro futuristic technology, because I've also worked in a lot of offices, and often the technology is not updated and it is like in need of an update. And I thought for me that was really fun and exciting, was, like even the weaponry they have, like, looks, in some ways it looks dated and basic, but then you actually see it in action and it's like, oh no, they're very powerful and not to be reckoned with.
You hide it. Going well. Oh, yeah. My jet ski magazine, put it down. Come on.
Have you been on a jet ski since this performance, and has it raised your appreciation for their existence?
I can't say that I'm the biggest fan of jet ski.
So that was acting. That was just pure acting then.
Yeah, it was just pure acting. I put them, they kind of remind me of aquatic leaf blowers. Which I'm not the biggest fan of either.
I get that.
Now, I have been on a jet ski. When you're on it, it's, you know, it's great. It's, you know, pretty exciting. You feel like Poseidon. The problem is if you're standing on the shore being subjected to it, not the greatest. It's not Walden's Pond.
It'll be fun though.
Yeah. It'd be really fun.